That song is just amazing. Don't you feel it?
Yes.
We're often looking for something in someone else that we already have in ourselves, and we don't realize it. It's already there. That hero is you. So I'm going to start off this morning as a grandmother. I love to hear grandmother stories. And I read this story about a grandmother who had sent her granddaughters a letter explaining about her day. She had gone to the local bookstore and she had seen this bumper sticker, "Honk if you really love Jesus." It just resonated with her. So she bought the bumper sticker and she stuck it on the bumper of her car. And as she was driving down the street, maybe down the plaza, she was just so caught up in this love of God and this feeling of spirit she'd just gotten, probably had just left Unity Temple. And she was feeling really good and had gone to Barnes & Noble, bought that bumper sticker. She was so excited. And what she didn't realize is how many people love Jesus, because she got so caught up that she missed the light. And all of a sudden, people were honking, and she goes, "This is wonderful," she writes to her granddaughter. "I didn't realize so many people love Jesus." And she said one man was so excited about it that he just started calling on the Lord like he was at a football game. "Go, Jesus, go, for God's sake, go." She thought, wow, this is amazing how people love Jesus. And she said, as she was sitting there contemplating all this, another person rolled their window down and got so excited, waved their hand and held up one finger in the air. Well, she had just asked her two grandsons, who were teenagers, a week before. She had seen someone do this, and she said, "What does that mean?" And they both kind of chuckled and looked at each other and said, "Oh, Grandma, that's the Hawaiian peace sign." And so she raised her hand up, and she gave him the Hawaiian peace sign right back. And she was just so caught up. Next thing you know, people started getting out of their cars. So she figured they wanted to pray. And she thought, well, great. But just then the light changed, she noticed. And she sped up. And when she did, she looked back and she noticed that nobody else caught the light. And they were all waving the Hawaiian peace sign. So she rolled down her window and she turned around and she waved right back. It was a great day to show how much you love Jesus. So I want you all to get yourselves a bumper sticker and see what happens. How many people on the plaza love Jesus? I think you'll find your answer. So I want to talk about today, are you on your spiritual path? Do you know what your path is? Are you on your path? Why do you come here on Sundays? Are you coming here just to see what happens, listen to the wonderful music, feel the ambiance? Are you seeking something? Well, I have a feeling many of you sit where I used to sit, seeking something, listening to hear if I was going to hear some powerful message that would inspire me to stay on the right path, or tell me if I was going wrong, maybe I need to get on a different path. And I would take copious notes, and all around my bulletin would be all these notes and nuggets of truth that I picked up. Where am I going? What do I want to do in my life? And I would get these little insights to see if I was on the right path. So I imagine that some of you are here every Sunday seeking your path. And some of you may not even realize you're already on the right path. You're on the right path. So I chose a scripture today from Jeremiah, the 6th chapter, the 1st verse, and I put it on the front of your bulletin. It says, "Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask for the good ways and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls." A lot of times we're just going along through the motions. We don't even pay attention to the road signs. We don't pay attention to things going around us. I don't know about you, but sometimes I can be driving and lose complete track of myself. I get to where I'm going and I don't even remember the route that I took. Somehow the car seems to just know its own way. And I wonder about that sometimes. Am I really there? Am I having an out-of-body experience? You know, what am I doing when sort of unconsciously I just drive along and I get to where I'm going? And then there's sometimes when I see other people and they're speeding in and out of traffic and they're trying to weave their way in and they don't really get very far. And unlike my husband, who always says, I wish I had a Mack truck. And I'd just ride right up on them and I'd give them the what for. And I think, no, my role is to step back. They must be in a hurry for something. I don't want to get in their way and I don't want them in my way. Step back and allow them all the room they need to continue on their path. Because my journey and theirs may not be exactly the same. Have you ever noticed on your journey you always meet people who may be a little different than you, but have something to teach you? And you know, some people that you learn best from are the people you don't like. You know, you think, why do I have to know that? Why is this person in my life? Because there's a message there for you. There's a reminder of who you are, who you're here to be, and whether you're on your path or you're following the path that someone else has told you to follow. So when I think about this path, you know, I think about The Wizard of Oz. Now, how many of you have seen the movie The Wizard of Oz? Yes. Do you realize it's 119 years old, that story? L. Frank Baum wrote that story in 1900. He was the son of a Methodist minister. And I imagine, just now that I'm older, when I was young, it was just a fun story. I loved The Wizard of Oz. And I'm from Kansas, so you know you have to be a fan of The Wizard of Oz. And the tornado that happened that whooped Dorothy up off her grounds and landed her someplace else trying to find her way back home. But when he wrote this, he had to be thinking metaphysically, because it's truly a metaphysical story. It's a unity story. There's more to that story than just Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion, and the Wiz, and the Munchkins, and the Flying Monkeys, and the Poppy Fields. Oh, I remember the whole story. I'm sure you do too. My favorite version of that story is the African-American version called The Wiz. The Wiz. And one of the things I like about The Wiz is one of the songs. Come on, ease on down the road. Come on, ease on down the road. Don't you carry nothing that might be a load. Come on, ease on down the road. I love that song. It has so much meaning and power, because oftentimes we're so distracted by things going on around us as we're driving along that we don't even pay attention to the road we're traveling. And we get sidetracked. So here come the distractions. But were they really distractions? Dorothy's going along, there's been a tornado, everything's upset, she doesn't know where she is, she's lost her family, all she has is her little dog Toto, and she's following down this yellow brick road, which what the good witch told her to do to find her way home. And then she meets the Scarecrow. And the Scarecrow has a very low image of himself. Oh, he thinks that he has no brain because he's stuck up on this pole in a cornfield, and he was told that all you're good for is to scare the crows. So he believed that. But when he meets Dorothy, there's something about her that attracts him. She has this positive idea that she's going to get home. Even though she doesn't know how far away she is from home or whether she can get home, she believes she can get home if she just stays on the path. So he thinks, well, maybe if I join the path with this positive young lady, I might get a brain, right? Because that's what I'm seeking. So he gets off the stick, which some of us need to do to get what we want. Got to get off the stick. And then he joins Dorothy on this trip down the yellow brick road to find a brain. She wants to go home. He wants a brain. So they're going along, and they meet the Tin Man. And he's all stiff and rusted, and all you can see is his face. I can still see Nipsey Russell playing that part in The Wiz. And he believes he has a brain. But he said if he had his druthers, he'd rather have a heart. And he sees the Scarecrow and Dorothy so positive, thinking they're going somewhere and they're going to meet this wizard and he's going to give the Scarecrow a brain and Dorothy, he's going to get her home. And he thinks, well, maybe he can give me a heart. I'm seeking a heart. So he joins them. And the next thing you know, they're going along and they meet this big, ferocious lion who's really a mouse in disguise. He has no courage. He's supposed to be a lion. He was born to be a lion, but he's been told all his life that he'll never measure up to being a lion. And he's a bully, because you know how bullies are. They have to try to make themselves big because they feel so small. And so he decides, well, maybe they're onto something. Maybe I'll go with them and I'll get some courage. So they go on down the road. They're all going in the same direction, but looking for different things. In the end, what they all discovered is the reason they happen to meet each other on this journey is because each one of them needed everything else that everybody else seemed to have. And each one of them already had what they needed inside of them. That's the real gist of that story. That we all have everything we need already. We are the hero. There's no hero outside. It's in you. Now, this story relates to the 40 days after the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. Now, how does the Wizard of Oz and the Jesus resurrection, how does that go together? Well, very well, because remember, this story, whether L. Frank Baum intended it to be metaphysical or not, is a metaphysical story. And most children's stories and children's books have adult meanings. So, Jesus has died. According to the Gospels, he was crucified. And on the third day, he was resurrected. So what happens next? That's what all the disciples are wondering. Where do we go from here? What happens next? Our hero is gone. Now what? Well, have you ever seen Elvis since he died? Anybody in here had Elvis die? I know a lot of people have. Most people say Elvis has left the building, but what building? So a lot of people are still saying Elvis is still alive. Well, it's sort of like an Elvis kind of thing. Okay, so these two guys, well, one is a guy, his name is Cleopas, and the metaphysical meaning of his name is lacking spiritual understanding, on the way to spiritual awakening. He wasn't quite awakened to his truth yet. So he's going down the road. They're headed toward this town called Emmaus after the resurrection. They had heard about it. So they're walking along and they're trying to figure out what happened. What do we do now? Where do we go from here? What do you think happens next? I mean, he was our hero and now he's gone. Who's going to be our hero now? We're still looking for somebody to guide us, to lead us, to tell us what to do. Because they weren't spiritually awakened to know that they had the hero in them. That everything they were seeking was seeking them. And so along comes this stranger, according to Scripture, and this stranger starts asking them what they were talking about. Can I join you on your path? And what were you talking about? And they say, well, haven't you heard? Where have you been? Under a rock? Well, sort of a good question. And did you know what just happened? Well, here's what happened. Jesus was crucified because he was trying to do good. He was trying to show us how to live life more abundantly. He healed the sick, he raised the dead, and they killed him. And then we heard from these women that went to tend to his body that the stone had rolled away. They had rolled the stone away. The tomb was empty, and all of his death clothes were folded neatly. Even the napkin that had been over his face was folded neatly, and he wasn't there. And an angel appeared, according to these women, and said, he's gone. He has risen. And then they see Jesus, and Jesus says, go tell the others, my brothers and sisters, to meet me in Galilee. And they don't know what to think, but they go running to tell everybody, and Cleopas and his friend happened to have heard the word. So they're telling this stranger all about this, and the stranger says, where have you been? This has all been foretold in the scriptures. This was told 1,000 years ago that this would happen. And he started to tell them all those stories that had been passed down for generations about what was going to happen with the crucifixion and the resurrection. So they start to go their separate ways. They're walking along their path, the direction they're supposed to be going in, and they meet the stranger who enlightens them, and then he starts to part and go one way, they're going another, and they thought, oh, would you like to join us for dinner? We would love to talk more with you. Well, of course I will. So he joins them for dinner, and when he sits down for dinner, he breaks the bread and he blesses it, and their eyes were opened and they realized this is the Christ. He was there all along, walking right beside them. And then he disappeared. Now, for 40 days after the resurrection, according to Scripture, he appeared like Elvis in different places. People said, I saw Jesus over here. I saw Jesus over there. And word started to get around. So what is the significance of that? 40 days. 40 is repeated many times in Scripture. It is, when something is repeated over and over again, it is very significant. The Fillmores taught the significance of those numbers and words that are repetitive in Scripture, in this textbook we call the Bible. So our co-founders in Unity pointed us in that direction, and 40 is one of those repetitions we need to pay attention to. 40 is a round number, and it symbolizes completion of something with an expectation of something to come. There was 40 days in the wilderness that Jesus spent agonizing over what was going to be his plight. There were 40 days and 40 nights of the flood, where Noah and the ark. You probably remember that story. And when you add 4 plus 0, 4, think about the characters in The Wizard of Oz, the main characters. There were 4 of them. There was Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion. You know, L. Frank Baum was a genius when it comes to metaphysics. He had to have known the Fillmores and others in the New Thought movement. So I'm telling you this story because of the significance of staying on your path. It's so easy to buy into what other people say, and you get off your path. It's your journey. And those who you need, who are seeking what you're seeking, or they need what you are to help them to become whole, will join you on that path. You'll meet the right people at the right time in the right way. In our Wednesday service, we sing, I'm in the right place at the right time. I am right where I'm supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. And that's so important, because a lot of times we don't know that we're on our right path until we meet people along the way who reassure us. I'll give you a personal example. I had to be in Chicago yesterday, the 40th anniversary of the flyover honoring 3 African-American sheroes who were among the first to become aviators, become airplane pilots, Bessie Coleman, Willa Brown, and Janet Bragg. I reenact the life of Bessie Coleman, who had to go to France to learn to fly, and had to learn French in the night school in Chicago in order to go to France to learn to fly, and got her license 2 years before Amelia Earhart. And so my job is to run the program and coordinate everything from here and then get it all set up there. And then I have a co-MC who was the first African-American female to become a railroad engineer, Valerie O'Neill. Valerie picks me up from the airport, and before she picked me up, I texted her and I said, by the way, my return flight was canceled. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I usually fly up in the morning and fly back that evening. And I need to be here this morning. So the gate attendant said, before I left Kansas City, said, well, we have a couple of options. The flight was canceled because of the impending snowstorms coming from the north. We can put you on the flight early in the morning. You can spend the night at a hotel. Nah, that wouldn't work for me. We can fly you to Denver. Like, oh, no, that won't work for me. We can fly you to Omaha, but because I-29 is shut down in parts, you would have to take a lot of detours, get off your path, and it might take you 5 hours to drive home. Or we can drive. I could drive from Chicago to Kansas City, which is an 8-hour drive. And I might not have been here this morning. So I was about to start getting off my path, my focus, okay? And I decided, you know what? I'm going to affirm divine order. I'm going to practice what I teach. I'm going to put this to use right now. So I made myself smile, and I looked at the gate agent, and I said, you know what? God is in charge of this, and it's going to work out. He said, you know, I like the way you think. Let me see what I can do. So he says, I'm going to put you on standby on the 3:45 flight. Well, the program starts at 1. It ends at 3. And I was trying to think quickly, how could I do this? And be there in time to check in, and I had a check bag. So I said, okay, put me on standby. He said, if I can book you, and there was another congregant with me who decided to come and video the program. And so if I can book you, I'll book you on those flights. Okay, great, on that flight. Great. I just trusted Spirit. I know I'm on my right path. I know I'm going in the right direction. This is where I'm supposed to be. Whatever happens is divine order. So I flipped the script. I did my performance first. We did the welcome, the invocation, the color guard, and the prayer and everything. And then I told them what the situation was. They had a big cake there. It was wonderful. 40th anniversary of this event. We've been planning for a year. I'm there every year. 21 years I've been going. So we now leave after everybody's, can I take a picture with you? And, you know, I'm dressed as Bessie Coleman. So we get to the airport. I'm watching Valerie's clock on her dashboard, and I'm thinking, there's no way we're going to make it. And I go, No. I'm on the right path. I'm on the right path. I took a breath, I calmed down, and I decided whatever happened was the right thing. So we get to the airport. I get my check bag, automated check bag ticket. I go to drop the bag off, and I tell the attendant that I didn't get a boarding pass. She says, I can take care of that. She gives me the boarding pass. The flight was delayed by an hour. When you are on the right path, you will be guided to just the right thing to do at the right time, in the right way, in the right place. You'll know you're on the right path. Even if there are detours and distractions, nothing can stand in your way. You just have to be flexible and know that whatever it is your right path. So the greatest thing about that was my former mentor, teacher, good friend, and now I can say fellow minister, Reverend Therese Lee, was on the flight coming from her church at the Unity of Hilton Head, and she was on that same flight. So when I got to my gate, there she was, and we were on the same flight coming back. So thank you for being here, Therese. She's here for the Nehemiah Convention. If you want to know more about that, please see Therese. It's phenomenal. So that's at Unity Village. But I want to share all that with you all today because it's so important. It's so easy to get off path. It's so easy when negatives happen, when people say things, or you go back in your old tapes that you play about what mama used to say, what daddy used to say. I wasn't smart enough to do this. I would never be that. I'm not very caring or loving. I'm not flexible enough. Or maybe I'm too scared, too fearful. You know, just like the scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion. You've heard those things before, but that's somebody else's truth. That is not your truth. And finding your truth is the way to stay on the path. Finding your truth. Each one of them was seeking their truth. And they found it through each other on that journey. Inside of you are those same characters. You are Dorothy. You are the Scarecrow. You are the Tin Man, and you are the Wizard of Oz. You are the Cowardly Lion. You have everything you need to get to where you need to be if you just stay on your path. Years ago, I was going through a difficult time in my career, and a good friend called me one day, and she said, Sandra, I have some advice for you. Don't look to the right. Don't look to the left. Just keep looking straight ahead. And when I followed her advice, it's like the whole world opened up for me. I no longer looked behind me to what someone else did or someone else said. I no longer looked over here to see what somebody else over here was doing or what somebody else over here was getting. I just kept focused on my journey. Sometimes we distract others by expecting them to have a different journey than what we think what they have. Our children and our grandchildren especially. We get really caught up in trying to make sure their journey matches our vision of their journey, but it's their journey. And my friend Catherine Thomas always reminds me, every pot has to sit on its own bottom. And it's the truth. So when you're paying attention to your journey, you don't have time to be worrying about whether someone else is on their journey. Make your walk speak for itself. Just like those characters, when they saw Dorothy going in her direction, they wanted to be part of that. They want to know, how do I stay on the path so that I can get those things that I seek? Stay on your path. Take a page from the 40 days when Jesus was appearing here and there, reminding everybody of who they are and what they're here to be. That's a lesson for all of us. And on the front of the bulletin, I put a couple of quotes to end with. Bishop Desmond Tutu said, "If you manage to stay on your path in life, you'll always be at the perfect place. It might not be where you want to be right now or where you want to end up, but you're in the right place at the right time. You are right where you're supposed to be." Mandy Hale said, "Keep your head up, your heart open, stay on a positive path, and the right people will come along and join you on it." Isn't that what happened in The Wizard of Oz? And Charles Fillmore, Unity's co-founder, writes in The Revealing Word, "The road to truth is the straight and narrow path along which Spirit directs, that is so smooth and safe that we do not allow ourselves to be misled by relying on and trusting in habit and intuition." So how about you? Are you staying on your path? Let's take that into meditation. Let's listen to Spirit guide us to keep us on our path.